So this is a little snippet from Psychopomps and the Soul, Traversing Death and Life for Healing and Wholeness. Appendix C, The Wondrous Glasgow Gift. I fluctuated quite a bit as to whether to include this in the book. There's a fair amount of personal disclosure already, and I was reluctant to do anything to further tip the scales. But the bottom line is, what I'm including here is what adds to the full potency of the wonder of the story. In many ways, it feels like the structural underpinning of the weave that brings the full tapestry into relief. And to a very large degree, in my mind anyways, it proves, without a shadow of a doubt, that the otherworld exists, that our loved ones are guiding us, that the web of weird is ever unfolding, and that each and every one of us has an epic story of light and dark. I shared about that awful moment sitting on a bench in front of a suicide memorial that created a huge chasm between me and my sister. What I did not share was that religion was the road that led us there. My sister is a fundamentalist Christian. I am a pagan. We had years and years of conflict when I was younger. She was not comfortable with my spiritual path. I was not comfortable with her attempts to convert me. There had been numerous cracks between us all through my teens and 20s that seemed irresolvable. Times when I put space between us because it was too hurtful and painful. But then I became a mom. She was the one family member who was closest to me geographically, and she is a fabulous mom. Our religious differences aside, she is a steadfastly loving and supportive person. She was in many ways a more constant support in my motherhood than our mother was. She was present in the room when Connor made his way into the world on more occasions than I could count, especially in the first years of Connor's life when I was still trying to make a relationship with an addict work. She was there for me. I knew no matter what was going on, I could always pop Connor in the car at the drop of a hat and with half an hour be enfolded in loving, calming, joyful energy. Her misstep that day at the memorial was clouded by the depths of her own grief and her religious beliefs, I know. And parts of her own story are not mine to share, but do add to the wonder of the weave. She needed to know Connor was in heaven because she needed to know she would be with him in heaven. That was and still is, I believe, an absolute necessity for her. And she needed to know that I believed that as well, but I could not bring myself to use the language of Jesus. I kept using the language of peace. And she kept asking me about Jesus until the path of our conversation ended up in the old, familiar wasteland of our spiritual differences that had characterized our relationship before Connor's birth. Her vehemence on the wrongness of my spiritual path, I took to mean that she believed if I had raised Connor as a Christian, he would still be alive. In that moment, in her pain, she could not deny it. And so our relationship cracked from the weight of the very thing that had strained it for years, but for the most part had been pushed into the shadow by our shared love for Connor. What had felt additionally painful about this was that I had such a deep conversation with Connor about spiritual beliefs shortly before his death. It was the day I knew for certain he was deeply in trouble. He seemed to be in good spirits, happy and energized, but the conversation was very concerning. He started by saying he thought he might be schizophrenic. As I was exploring what he meant by that and what was going on for him that led to that conclusion, he said, "Mom, I know you raised me to be a pagan." I interjected and said, "Actually, honey, I raised you in a pagan household to follow your own heart and your own spiritual path, wherever that may take you. He said, right. Because I think I might be a Christian. I said, fabulous. Well, if that's the case, you will probably want to talk to your aunt instead of me about it. She would be the one to help support you along that path. He said, well, I still think I'm a pagan, but I think I'm a Christian too, and a Buddhist. I said, well, I think that's a fabulous combination. But it was when he started talking about seeing the sky filled with spirits at Passover when I asked him about his doctor and psychiatrist. He had arranged to see his doctor that afternoon and asked me if I would attend the appointment via speakerphone because he was nervous about telling his doctor the truth about everything that was going on for him, which I did. And in that appointment, he told his doctor he had a psychiatrist appointment the following Thursday that I trusted, as he had been diligent about making the doctor's appointment. I trusted that he was seeking the help he needed and leaning on the support he needed. I spoke with him on the Wednesday to confirm his aunt would be attending his psychiatrist appointment with him, which is when he said he was fine to attend on his own but still wanted to see her. And that was such an odd thing in itself. My sister drove 45 minutes to see Connor for lunch before he had to go to his appointment. But while he was getting his coat for lunch, she accidentally locked her keys in the car with a number of unusual and unexpected CAA, Canadian Automobile Association, snags. She ended up being with him for 3 hours, which is why she was able to tell me that he said he didn't have the appointment. Otherwise, it may just have skirted under the radar. But more importantly, she was able to spend 3 hours talking with him about what was going on for him, how he was managing, what was helpful to him. And as I had suggested to him previously, as one of the many tools for helping to stave off the dark, she asked if she could pray for him. He said yes. She asked if she could touch him while she prayed, and he said yes. Later, she told me that she had prayed that Jesus would help him to see the light and to push away the dark, and that he would hear positive, loving, supportive voices, not terrible, hurtful, awful voices as he had told me he was hearing. She said that partway through the prayer, she felt an electric current go through her, and she felt that the prayer had been answered. She didn't use this language, but I suspected she felt that Connor had been saved. She had so much hope in that moment for him. It wasn't until much later that I realized, in light of this, how his death would have been even more shocking and devastating to her. I felt something completely different. I felt that this was the moment that Connor decided to take his life. I don't mean that in any sort of a blaming way. I believe he had been thinking about it for a long time, even though he told me he wasn't. Just that in the prayer, he found the peace to be able to do so and put an end to the agony in his brain that he felt helpless to heal. I had encountered this energy before. In truth, it was there in every single accidental psychopomp moment, though I hadn't recognized it each time. There was a moment several days before my dad died when I had such a strange experience. I was alone in the hospital room with him. I had my hands on his arm and I was singing my favorite chant to him over and over. I held this space for at least an hour, hoping that my chant would somehow reach him with the comfort of presence. But then there was this moment when something happened. I felt this jolt of electricity coursing through my hands. This was not at all like a Reiki energy moving through me to him. It was the complete opposite. It was like there was this current from him to me, a magnetic current. I couldn't move my hands to take them from him. It was like I was stuck to him for as long as it was happening. It lasted only a moment or two, but it was charged and visceral, and then it was done. I had no idea what that was, and I didn't tell anyone for years. But then, and I can't even remember why, I was having a chat with another sister, the one closest to me in age. And for some reason, that memory came up, so I told her the thing I had never told anyone. And she told me something she had never told anyone either. She and I had actually shared a beautiful, intimate, sacred moment with our mother a few days before she died. Mom was sitting in a chair beside her bed, and I was kneeling at her feet, rubbing lotion on her poor, dry legs. This sister was standing behind her, giving her a gentle shoulder massage. I was quiet, but they were talking about death. It felt, in truth, like it was a sacred moment between them, and I just happened to be there, almost as an afterthought, at Mum's feet. Mum asked my sister what she thought happened when you died. My sister put the question back to her. What do you think happens, Mum? All I remember is Mum saying, well, I don't know, but I sure hope I come back as a purple morpho butterfly. But in the conversation with my sister years after both Mum and Dad were gone, she told me that she too had had that experience. When she was massaging Mum's shoulders, she felt this electric charge moving from Mum to her for several moments, and then it ended. I said to her, I think that's the moment her soul decided to leave, and the same with Dad. That's the moment, and that moment happens with the passing of some sort of energy. I gave this a lot of thought over the subsequent years and came to realize that there was a reason why Mum passed energy to my sister and Dad passed energy to me, totally unconsciously. Or perhaps I should say totally super consciously. There were huge sacred contracts at play. I was more aware of this with my brother, and it was very interesting to me that when I laid my hands on him, nothing really happened. It wasn't until his daughter also laid her hands on him that the energy changed and it started moving. I spoke with her about it again years later, and she said she felt the same thing. There was a circuit that closed once she touched his torso, and I could feel that, but the current was not directed at me. It was directed towards her. So when my sister, the one with the strong connection to Connor, told me that she felt that charge while she was praying, I knew. That was on Thursday. Connor died the following Monday, and a neighbor, who's probably the last to see him alive on that Monday, told us on the heartbreaking day we went to clear out his room that Connor had looked happier on that Monday than the neighbor had seen him in weeks, like a weight had been lifted from him. So much so that the neighbor thought that whatever the doctor had done must really have worked. But it wasn't the doctor nor the psychiatrist that he never went to. I believe it was the prayer and the peace in the decision that he made. And I believe that the energetic charge that went through her was Connor's soul gift, like Mum's to my other sister, Dad's to me, my brother's to his daughter. And there is sacred purpose in that charge, I believe. I may have been Connor's mother, and my grief was deeper than words can even begin to describe. But so was hers. And as already described in previous chapter, it took me a couple of months of working through my own grief enough to see that and to be able to remember the truth of her own essence that lay beyond both our grief. I can't say the hurt between us healed quickly. It had been a deep, raw wound that had been decades in the making and needed time to truly heal, not just be paved over once more. Over the course of the next almost year, we took very careful steps rebuilding. Part of that rebuilding was me acknowledging to her that it was my own mother wound, an abandonment wound, that had been so acutely triggered. But what did change in our relationship was the revelation of a depth of honesty that I'm not sure we ever experienced in the past. We had gone to the most painful place possible together, with love and extreme gentleness, It made it possible for us to go to the most vulnerable places. And then the unbelievable happened.